Hello and welcome to another episode. I am Brian, the Unskilled Commander, and this is Deck Breakdown. Doo-doo-doo-doo-doo-doo-doo. And yes, I will probably always do some sort of thing like that, so deal with it. Today's deck breakdown is my Tor Wauki the Younger deck. It's quickly becoming one of my favorites because it's pretty easy to run and it's fun. I don't think I've won with it yet. I've only played it a few times against friends, but it still has the potential to be relatively not competitive, I guess, depending. I don't know, but it can be a fast, good deck if you luck into some decent ramp early on with mana rocks and then like a string of one drops. But let's go ahead and break the stats down and get into that. So first off, we've got 36 lands for this deck. Of course, we've got Evolving Wilds, Terramorphic Expanse, and Mirrored Landscape to deck thin, and crack it and get, and also deck balance or land balance with swamps and mountains. We've got, of course, your double-sideds. I mean, not double-sided, but, taps for one of either. Some good, some bad, like Sulphurous Springs. It's one of the ones that it's pain land, so it's faster. And then we've got, just Canyon Slough that just comes in tapped, and it taps for either or. But you can cycle it, so maybe if you get this mid to late game and you don't need any more lands, it's a great way to just dump it and get a different card. But things like that, of course, Command Tower, so you can tap for either one. And one of the things that could help this deck is land base increase, but there's really not a ton of those kind of lands that would really make it that much faster. I'm trying to get it out of the glare there. Because I have a couple. I think I have at least one of the lands that's comes in untapped if you have two or more opponents and, that kind of stuff. So there's not too many others, I don't think, unless you're talking super expensive lands. Also, I have one Planeswalker, which is both a damage spell and a ramp spell because her plus, it's Chandra, Torch of Defiance, +1 to add 2 mana of any, two mountains to your mana pool, or +1, exile top card of your library. You may cast it. If you don't, she deals 2 damage to each opponent. That's, getting that extra mana is probably really important to play out spells that you have in your hand, instants and sorceries, to get Tor Wauki's triggers going. But, just drawing the card off of this is probably a good one because you exile it, and even if you don't cast it, she does 2 damage to your, it exiles is not card draw, sorry. But you get what I'm saying. So it does have the potential to, get you more cards that you can cast, because ideally most of the cards in here are supposed to be about 3 mana or less, the bulk of them. So, +1, hopefully you hit like a 1/2 drop and you can cast it from exile, which in and of itself, it'll do some sort of damage. I'm sorry, I should have read over Tor Wauki to give you guys the true, insight of what the deck is. He's a 3/3 for 5 mana. Not that great, but Reach and Lifelink helps balance that out. And then more importantly are his 2 abilities. If another source you control would deal non-combat damage to a permanent or player, it deals that much +1 to that permanent or player. And whenever you cast an instant or sorcery spell, Tor Wauki himself deals 2 damage to any target. The cool thing is that, okay, so you cast an instant, he deals 2 damage, he has lifelink, so you gain 2 life off of that. Now, it's not commander damage, but it's still him doing the damage. So you could, theoretically, I could put a grafted exoskeleton into this deck, attach it to him, or wait, could I? I don't know if that I can equip to non-creatures. Or what am I saying? He is a creature. I'm all confused. Oh my god! Sorry, for some reason I was thinking he was a planeswalker because we were just talking about planeswalkers. So grafted exoskeleton onto him. So even, you don't have to swing, that 2 damage now is infect damage. So that's a consideration. I might actually put that in at some point, but it's a fun little thing, but it's 1 card out of 99, and the second people see it, they're not going to target him bad enough already. You put in effect on him, every single piece of removal is going to come flying at Tor Wauki. So, I don't know, it's something to consider, but I'm not sold on it just yet. So let's go ahead and check out our enchantments. We only have 4 enchantments, but they're mainly for doubling damage. We've got double vision. Whenever you cast your first instant or sorcery, you copy it. So that's good for extra damages. But then we've got Fire Emancipation, which, if you do damage, it double it. Is it double or triple? Triple that damage. Phyrexian Arena is good because it's card draw. Yes, it's hitting you, but you need that card draw in this deck for sure. Gratuitous Violence, again, if creature you control would deal damage to a creature or player, deals double that damage. Now, please note that is deals damage, not combat damage. When Tor Wauki hits for 2 off of playing an instant, that's the creature doing damage, so it would double. So now Tor Wauki is doing 4 damage, you're gaining 4 life. This can get, life gain can get going pretty well, and the damage overall. Next up, we've got creatures. There are 13 in this deck. Goblin Picker, is just a little card draw. It's not the best. This will probably be one of the creatures that goes first at some point if I can figure out a better card draw aspect in there. But we've got a lot of good stuff in here. A lot of the theme of the creatures is damage. We got Thermo Alchemist. You tap it, deals 1 damage to each opponent. Lightning Rig Crew, same thing, each opponent. I like the each opponent because once you start targeting a specific person, they all get salty and blah, blah, blah. Where I like it when you can just yeah, this happens, everybody takes the damage. Angrath's Marauders, this is a creature, but it's also another doubler, where it's if a source you control deals damage, does double that damage. This one, when the opponent draws a card, deals damage to that player. Tap it, deal 1 damage to target, things like that. So it's about land comes in, damage. This, whenever you cast an instant sorcery, you make a treasure token that hopefully you can use for more sorceries. So you see, Electric Static Field, of course, Gutter Snipe, a big one, because that's 2 damage to each opponent. So that's the goal of the creatures, is to deal damage with some sort of effect, either something happening or tapping it or whatever. Tapping is a little weaker because you can only do it once unless you have a whole bunch of cards bent on making you untap creatures, which this does not have. But even so, tap it once a turn, deal 1 damage, Tor Wauki's out, that's now 2 damage to every player. Every player is taking 2 damage each turn, just tapping a creature, and then hopefully you're doing other stuff. Artifacts, we've got 10. Of course we've got some, right? And these are all just your mana ramping, standards. You got Rakdos Signet, Talisman, Bonder's Ornament, Decanter of Water, which is a good one. Let me get back to that one. Soul Ring, all the stuff. You got your Serene Dynamo, you got your statics there. Now, these two are more specialized for the deck. Pyromancer's Goggles, you tap it to add, it's a 5-drop though, but you add it to tap 1 red mana. When that mana is spent to cast an instant sorcery, you copy it though. So it can be used for anything. You can cast a creature with it, but if you cast an instant sorcery, now you're copying that instant sorcery. And Sentinel Tower is almost like the creatures where it's like Gutter Snipe, where you cast an instant sorcery. This Sentinel Tower deals damage to any target equal to 1 plus the number of instant or sorceries you've cast before that spell this turn. Cast. So it's almost like it's a little portable storm, sort of, storm tower almost. So you cast a bunch of instant sorceries, and this tower continuously deals more and more damage off of each cast. Okay, so then now we get to the bulk. Here we go, where this deck is built for. We've got instants, 17 instants and 18 sorceries. Both of these bounce back and forth with 2 main concepts. They need to draw cards because this needs to be a constant surge. You can't dump your hand in 1 turn. Yeah, you may have dealt, 6 damage to every player and then an extra 4 damage to a specific player. You're just going to die. You're going to get immediately attacked by everybody. You need to keep that going with a lot of card draw and a lot of low-cost spells. So, 1 drop, draw a card. Target creature, that was dealt damage this turn, destroy it. So that can even be better. Like some of these things do a little bit of damage to a creature, like 1 damage to a creature. It's still an instant sorcery. You do it, and then you swing out. You're not swing out, but you toss out already dead. Now you're destroying a big creature with only 1 damage type of thing. Gut shots, needle drop. I think this is like the very thing I was speaking of. Needle drop, 1 damage to target creature or player, but you can use it that way. Most of these are targeted damage, so you gotta be careful. And now Seething Song, a nice ramp spell. Pay 3, get 5. In red and black, that's kind of, you need those kind of things. Card draw, things like that. Frostbite, card draw. And then sorceries, same deal. Jessica's Will, of course, that's a sorcery, so you're going to deal damage, but you're going to hopefully get mana off of somebody's, hand. And of course, you'll have your commander out ideally, so you'll get to exile top 3 cards. If someone has 5 cards in their hand, you just made 5 mana, you exile top 3. Hopefully they're all 3 drops or less, so you can cast like 2 or 3 of them right off the bat off of the mana from someone else's hand. And hopefully, at this point, you've got like an extra 3 or 4 or 5 mana that you haven't even touched yet to play your own hand. So, Grape Shot. I tried to put a couple Storm cards in here. I think there's only 3, and actually I'm waiting on one, and it's lost in the mail somewhere. It's kind of annoying. But the idea is to, again, play those 1 or 2 drops in like a big turn on turn 5 or something where you got a decent ramp going in mana, and then drop the Storm spell. So now you have to be careful. Like the Storm, copying spells is not going to trigger a Tor Wauki. So you're not going to get the benefit out of that. But the idea is you're blasting people in the face. You're hitting everybody. Every time you cast one, you're hitting damage and gaining life. And okay, you hopefully are copying a direct damage spell. So it's like, oh, this is 4 damage to your face, or 2 damage to your creature, or 2 damage to your face. And now Storm's kicking in. So, or whatever. I'm casting a couple of these, or you get the idea. I mean, I may not be describing the Storm quite right. I'm trying to move quickly here, but again, there's, card draw in here, but there's still sorcery. So even though I'm drawing cards and discarding, I'm hopefully, blasting someone in the face. Some of these, you do have to be careful, like Tendrils of Agony. This is a double-edged sword, so to speak, where it's a 4-drop, so that's a big cost in and of itself, just to do 2 life, and you gain 2 life. But target player loses 2 life. That's not the same as damage. So this will not trigger his first effect and get the little buff, where it says you do damage, you do that much +1. This won't go up by 1. But it has Storm. So you played a bunch of these, like right there, 1, 2, 1, 1, 1. You play a bunch of them, and then you play Tendrils of Agony, copy it for each spell cast before it. So now that person is hopefully getting hit with Tendrils of Agony 4 times or 5 times or something. So while it may not be damage, it's life loss, it still can add up. And that's pretty much it. That is Tor Wauki in a nutshell. Not necessarily optimized, because there's not too many answers in here. There's a few, obviously the direct damage spells can be your answer as long as something isn't indestructible. But that's mainly creatures and players. You can't just target 3 damage to an enchantment that's screwing you over. But, sometimes I think you just got to decide on what you want the deck to do and go all in and have fun with it and not worry about some things. Yes, should you have 10 answers in every deck? Probably, maybe, but sometimes if you focus it well enough, maybe you don't need the answers because they won't get to them fast enough, right? That's the goal, at least. So there's Tor Wauki, broken down. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you got some ideas for decks of your own. If you think of any cards that you think would be great for this deck, let me know in the comments, and I will see you next time.